Most countries have like this big lottery that you could win, right? So whatever the big lottery is, here the Powerball can, routinely get to $500 million. And so envision that you win and you're the only winner. So you win $500 million. Now what happens is the government's going to take a couple hundred million of that, but let's say you still have 300 million. So you have 300 million. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to party like crazy. So you're going to go out, you're going to party, you're going to travel the world, you're going to buy the house, the castles, you're going to buy friends' cars, you're going to just do all the partying and spending, all that stuff. And you're going to do that for a year. So a year goes by and you do all that stuff. And at the end of that year, and you give money to charities and you set up, all the mission work, everything you want to do. But a year later, you still have 100 million in the bank. And you get up and it's a year later. And what would you do? There's no more celebrating, there's no more partying, everybody's taken care of, everything's done. What would you do then with your life at that moment?
The Tom Screen podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and for every direct account we look after, we sponsor a child in a developing nation with food, water and education. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode. Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Blaine Oelkers. Blaine, welcome.
Hello, Thomas. I am so happy to be here, and congratulations to you. I noticed that you have a couple of 100 episodes, so well done. I'm honored to be on the podcast. And then also, I did like to see that you do support kids. And so maybe we'll end up talking about that today, but that is a special place in my heart, social entrepreneurship, where you can actually kind of bake right into the business, the helping of the world in some way. So congratulations on that as well, and happy to be here.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Blaine Oelkers. I am currently residing in Phoenix, Arizona, in the United States. And I am America's, at the moment, I'm America's only chief results officer. And so what happened for me is early on, well, I'll tell you, there's these times in your life where you have kind of these moments of dawning comprehension. And so for me, I've always kind of been a seeker of knowledge. And I think a lot of your listeners are probably seekers of knowledge, listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But in college, I was at Purdue University, and I wrote away from a magazine article, had this request where you could get this audio tape about the book Think and Grow Rich. So have you ever heard of that book, Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah, many times.
Okay, so I sent away for this tape, and it turned out that Earl Nightingale, he became a mentor of mine. He was reading an abridged version of Think and Grow Rich, and so I read this book in college. So I ended up buying the book and reading it, and I read the book, and in that moment of reading the book, Think and Grow Rich, I realized that you could, take your thoughts, and turn them into physical reality. So the book talks about financial, Think and Grow Rich, but the riches could be anything, harmonious relationships, getting the right job, meeting the right person. And so I started to apply later what I ended up calling What You Think About, You Bring About, YTABA, a little acronym for that. I started to use that in my life, and that really brought a lot of success to me in relationships. And I met my wife at college, and we've been married 30 years now. So a lot of good things happened. And I had enough success that I bought one of the original 5,000 books. There was a 5,000 printing. Now they say there's hundreds of millions, definitely tens of millions of copies of that book. But when I read the original, I opened the book and it was different. And so, the very first two pages were these instructional pages. And we could unpack those pages if you want, but in those instructions, that was another kind of moment of dawning comprehension. First one was, hey, what you think about, you bring about. But then this other one was really the instructions to kind of get whatever you're looking for. And at that moment, I was trying to have my business it was worth maybe about $300,000. I wanted to be $1 million business. I wanted to own $1 million business. And I thought it might take me 3, 4, 5 years. But within 5 months of applying those principles, I had reached that goal, and I kind of never went back from that. And I started helping other people get results. I started working with mastermind groups, and became their chief results officer. They started calling me that. I went and I got the registered trademark from the United States Patent Office so that I can be the only one of those. And now what I do is I spend my days helping people kind of take control of their lives by taking control of themselves, something I call self-fluence. And what I like about self-fluence is that it's the power you already have to influence yourself. You don't need anything more. You don't have to buy anything else. You don't have to change anything. Like, you already have these powers within you. It's just tapping into that power that you have. So I do have 2 kids as well. They're kind of out of the nest. So I have a lot of time to kind of work on my craft. And I've worked from home for now 27 years. And so that has also afforded me, I've worked from home running businesses that had no daily operations. So that has afforded me a lot of time to kind of do research and test stuff out and figure things out. So I'm happy to be here today. And I hope that I can share something that will help other people get results, because I do feel like God has put me on the planet here to help people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves.
Thank you for the introduction. Very, very good introduction. So thank you for sharing it. There's like 3 different things that I want to talk to you about. So I guess that's a good thing. You mentioned the different versions of Think and Grow Rich. Would you like to share what the difference is between what perhaps most people have read versus the version that you bought was?
Yeah. So most people read, and I still have it, a paperback version of the book Think and Grow Rich. And it was actually, I came to find out, it was actually changed in 1960. Napoleon Hill actually lived till 1970, but it was written in the 20s, released in the 30s. And so what happened for me is, when I opened up the book, the first page said, what do you want most? And I was like, oh, I don't remember that, and then the first page goes on to tell you in great detail, this book is not a novel. It's not a story. It's history, but it's a textbook. It's a textbook on the psychology of success, the psychology and the methodology of taking your thoughts, and your desires and your strong desires and turning them into a reality. But that first page said, before you read the book, get very, very clear on whatever it is you want, whether it's money, fame, relationships, harmony, whatever it is, get super, super clear and specific on what you want, and very, in as much detail as possible. So that was the first page. And then when you turn the page, it tells you how to read the book. And so it talks about this concept, which you may be familiar with, of the mastermind group, which kind of says, like, when 2 minds come together, a third kind of unique, more powerful mind is created. So, for example, if we're talking about marketing, and we're talking about Facebook marketing, you're an expert at that, and I said, well, I need some help in Facebook marketing. Maybe you come up with 10 ideas, or maybe you have 15, and I come up with 5. So that's 20. But if we come together and pool those ideas, instead of just 20, we'll end up with 30, 40, or 50 ideas. So the concept of the mastermind group is 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, 4, maybe 5. And so this concept of, you have to read the book and share, I ended up calling this your bring about statement. This is the thing you're trying to bring about. You have to share your bring about statement, and you have to read it in community with at least one other person. And you have to read it in a certain way, no more than 1 chapter a day. And he kind of outlines this whole kind of study club of reading the book. And so what I did is I said, let's do it. And so for 5 months in a row, I did a study group where we went through the book as he recommended. And it was in that process that, I was able to, get, have that $1 million business appear in just 5 or 6 months. And when the opportunity showed up for me to grow my business rapidly, like, I knew right away, I knew that was it. And it actually came from masterminding with other people. So those are the first big differences. Then as I read the book, I said, well, wait a second, this whole experience is different. And one of the big difference was that he shouted a lot. So Napoleon Hill wrote a lot of the many parts of the book were in all caps. but most people read a version that didn't have that. It lost all that. So all caps, that was a big change. And then I noticed that some of the chapters had changed. And so when I was reading the book, so I happened to be a Christian, and so there was mentions of Jesus and things like that. I'm like, whoa, I would have remembered that in this other version, and it wasn't in there. So it was made a little bit more politically correct and things like that. So it was interesting, because then I found one person who printed that book, but then he passed away, and I ended up having to go and luckily the very original, they call it the facsimile version with all the bolding, caps and all that stuff, was available in the public domain. So I was able to pull that and make a derivative work where I took my study guide that I had created and chapter by chapter study guides, and I put all that in one book. And so that's been kind of a joy to publish and make sure that people have access to that original version. But those were the differences. And if you apply those differences, I find most people read the book and don't get rich. But if you do these instructions, you will move towards riches. I cannot never guarantee how far you go, but a lot of that depends on your drive and your ability to apply the 13 principles within the book.
Thank you for sharing that. And the deciding what you want, or being very clear on what you want before you read, makes total sense, because you can, in theory, read the book and really not know what you want. And then, for example, the chapter on perseverance or whatever it might be, well, it doesn't apply to anything unless you originally know. So it does make sense. Are you aware of, because Earl Nightingale read Think and Grow Rich, which presumably was the one you bought. Which version was it that he read? Is it the later one?
So he actually read, now this it's going to be slightly dating myself here, but I got it on an audio cassette. Some listeners might not even know what that is, but an audio cassette, which was limited in time. So it was a very abridged version. But what he was reading to me, sounded like the original version, but it was an abridged version. So it didn't have any of the instructions, and it didn't even have kind of all the stories in there, but it led me to go buy the book and then read it. And then Earl was kind of a mentor of me through audio programs, Lead the Field, but he also did something called The Strangest Secret. Have you heard of that before from Earl Nightingale?
Love it. There's a person who I've quoted probably the most on my podcast is Earl Nightingale. So
oh, excellent.
Love it.
Yeah. So he said, this idea, I talk about white table, what you think about, you bring about, kind of like the law of attraction with action. But he was one of the genesis for me, because he said, we become what we think about. That was like his strangest secret that people, should know or should apply, but we're not applying. And he won a lot of awards for that record. That was to go pre-cassette. That was, I have that on an LP, vinyl record, which is when it came out. And he won an award for the spoken word. I think it was the most sold album of spoken word ever when it came out.
Yeah, he basically created a new industry with The Strangest Secret. Is there any other inspirations that you took from him?
I think in listening to that Strangest Secret kind of over and over and over, I learned a little bit about storytelling and how the mind works, and really the power of the mind. I think from him. And attitude was big. He was real big on attitude and kind of controlling your attitude. I think that, when you realize, hey, what I think about, I bring about, and you buy into that, then he kind of takes you into this next thing. So what are you thinking about, right? And how do you control what you're thinking about? And especially right before big circumstances or big sales calls or big moments in your life, controlling that right before, what you think about kind of right before you go into something, whether it's, something hard or something easy or something celebratory, that's an important moment. So I think I learned quite a bit from him about that too.
What are you thinking about at the moment in relation to bringing it about?
So I'll tell you another story, which I think the listeners, if they only do one thing today, this would be the one thing. And so I ended up, one of my bucket list items 5 years ago was to do a TEDx talk. And so I was quite scared about it, but I got the opportunity. Somebody nominated me. And so I did this talk, and I ended up doing a talk about white table, what you think about, you bring about. And I told some emotional stories, which I'm not an emotional person, so that was kind of different. But anyway, so I do this talk. And in the end, I passed out these cards, and I talked about how your brain is a garden, really, and Earl talks about this, and what you plant, in that garden of your mind, that's what's going to grow. Now, if you plant nothing, then weeds are going to grow. And that's even like worse, because then you got to pull the weeds, or other people might plant stuff in your garden of the mind. And I asked people, I said, well, write down on this card, what is something you want to bring about in your life? So just write it on the card. So everybody does that. They'd handed out these cards and pens. And then what I had everybody do is I had everyone take out their smartphones. Now there might have been a few flip phones in the house, but almost everybody has a smartphone today. And I had everybody take a picture of that card and make that their unlock screen on their phone. So now I don't know what you have on your unlock screen, but typically when I ask people who haven't heard my talk, it's either nothing, like the default screen, or it's like a picture they like. Could be the beach, could be family, could be friends, something that they like. But what I asked them to do is put that goal on there, because it turns out that a company many, many years ago, now Apple actually tracks it. You can see how many times you unlock your phone. But for the average person, it's between 60 and 160 times a day that you see your unlock screen. So if you'll put what you're trying to bring us. So for me, I started this year, I've started a kind of a division of my company called Self-Fluence, the art and science of influencing yourself. I started a new division. And so my bring about statement is that I want to be serving 334 business owners, that's who I primarily serve, by November 15th. So I have that on my unlock screen. I made a cool graphic using Canva. I don't know if anyone's used that before. Canva.com is a free a program that allows you to make cool graphics of certain sizes. So that's good. But that's what I'm bringing about right now is that I'm pouring into building that, where I'm serving 334 business owners to help them get what I call super results. And one of my strategies for that, a side bring about statement, is to be a guest on podcast. So what happened is, using this methodology of what you think about, you bring about, I said, okay, let me get on some podcasts. This will help me be a better speaker, help me get my message out. And I said, I want to be on 52 podcasts this year. And so people at the beginning of the year, like, yeah, how many have you been on? I'm like, well, in my whole life, I've been on 8. And so, that's going to be, people are like, yeah, that's going to be hard, but anyway, I have a big LinkedIn group. And then I also found something called Podmatch, which I think is where we might've met. So I started that process. And so now it's April. I've been on 11. I've been on 11, not 12 now. You are my 12th this year. But through those other sources, I have booked 29 other ones. So I've got over 40 that I'm either going to be on or book. So it's not going to be a problem. We're going to be okay. So I'm excited about that. But those are the things that I'm bringing about right now. How about you? What things or thing are you trying to kind of bring about?
Well, firstly, I want to say I have no doubt that you'll reach that number whatsoever. And thank you for sharing that. It's interesting because I told you before, should we say, before we started recording, that I'd be asking about what your goals are. And the reason I asked that question is because I don't actually have a clear goal that I want to achieve. And that might be because, I kind of have achieved something that I wanted to achieve already. And now I have to look for a new goal type thing. And so I'm looking for what that might be, which is why I asked the questions of what your goals are. So yeah, any thoughts on perhaps if you're stuck and you're looking for your new goal and you don't have one yet, because that would definitely help me.
Yeah, I think there's a few exercises that we do in workshops to try to uncover, a direction, right, for you, and so there's a couple of different ones. One, well, some people, Some people use the eulogy one. I don't like that one, where you kind of, write your own eulogy and all the things you accomplished. So I'm not a fan of that one. It's a little on the negative side. I try to tend to be more on the positive side. So instead, I used to have this exercise about your 100th birthday. I have recently updated that as I aged to 20th birthday party. So you envision that you're attending your 120th birthday party. Now you got the lean muscle mass, you're looking good. There's been some scientific advantages here. You still have full faculty. So it's not a bad 120. It's a good 120. But you're at this party and you're kind of on the side watching, you're sitting up there, and one by one, people are coming up, people from your family, people from your maybe business community, people from your regular community. And they're talking about what you did and the contributions that you made. And so that exercise of kind of living that out tends to help you, figure out maybe what direction you want to go, in your life. So that's one. Another one, one of my favorites is called the Powerball test. Now in the United States, we have this thing called the Powerball, but most countries have like this big lottery that you could win, right? So whatever the big lottery is, here the Powerball can, routinely get to $500 million. And so envision that you win, and you're the only winner. So you win $500 million. Now, what happens is the government's going to take a couple $100 million of that. But let's say you still have $300 million. So you have $300 million. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to party like crazy. So you're going to go out, you're going to party, you're going to travel the world, you're going to buy the house, the castles, you're going to buy friends' cars, you're going to just do all the partying and spending, all that stuff. And you're going to do that for a year. So a year goes by and you do all that stuff. And at the end of that year, and you give money to charities and you set up, all the mission work, everything you want to do. But a year later, you still have $100 million in the bank, and you get up and it's a year later. And what would you do? There's no more celebrating. There's no more partying. Everybody's taken care of. Everything's done. What would you do then with your life at that moment? And it's interesting. And in live workshops, when we go around the room, 90% of the room says, I would help people blank. Now the blank is different based on your experience, what your experience is. But most of the people are like, I would help people blank. Like, so I would help people take control of their lives by taking control of themselves. So when I say to my wife, we talk about this, and I'm like, yeah, if I won the Powerball, I would still do Thomas's podcast. Like, it's what I really want to do, what I feel like I've been gifted and called to do. So sometimes that Powerball test can be very, very helpful. The last test that I use is a business kind of experience, where whatever, here the Wall Street Journal is like the big business publication. But you think about some period out in the future, 3 years, 5 years, whatever you want. Let's say 5 years out, and the Wall Street Journal is going to do an article about you. What is the headline? Right? What is the headline? So for me, it could be, America's chief results officer, helps millions of business owners, get results, or something like that. So you come up with the title of that. And then some people go on to bullet point based on how much time you want to give it, bullet point the article. And then some people actually write the article. And it's interesting over the next months that follow to see how what you've envisioned in that article begins to show up. Right, begins to show up. But for you, I would say you got to pick something, and don't delay long. Make a prompt, decisive decision, and then move in that direction. And if it's wrong, that's okay, because if it's wrong, you'll know. You won't have the motivation. You won't want to get up early to do it, and that's okay. But you've learned in the process of moving. But where you are, it's a dangerous position after you accomplish the big goal. And the great study about astronauts, before they're allowed to go into space, and especially before they're allowed to go like to the moon, they had to have a set of goals that they were going to have once they got back. Because when they had that big goal, there was this huge depression that happened after they kind of achieved their lifetime goal, which was to go to space. So it is important. You're in a dangerous spot, Thomas. You've got to find something new, and you might have something in the back of your head, I think.
Well, it's thank you for touching on it, because I do feel like perhaps I've been here not having a clear long-term goal for a while. So I appreciate but you make a good point, which is you said that you would have come on the podcast regardless. And when you told me about the what would you do if you had 100 million in the bank type thing, I probably would have to start a podcast at that point. So it is very possible that I'd be doing exactly this.
Yeah, so it could be a little more, have a little more bling involved with it all, but it's you would do it, but at a maybe at a bigger level or something, right? So yeah, and some of what you're doing now, I mean, very few podcasts make it to the length and size of yours. So you have a pretty good thing going here, and you have a unique, I call it dry, snarky way of interviewing people, which I think is a lot of fun and enjoyable to listen to.
Also, wanted to pick up on something which you said about, because Earl talks about this as well, in the sense that you mentioned I would help people with X. I think you called it blank, and he said that I think it's in being in service to others. So the reason we're here is to be of service to other people. So there is very much a theme here with Earl and your approach, which I love. But I do, before we move on, I do want to ask you about the results, because you're the chief results officer, and I do love that kind of accountability. So, what would you share on getting results?
Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about one of the things we could talk about is what I like to call the 30-minute hour. So let's talk about getting results. So the 30-minute hour is how to get an hour's worth of stuff done in just 30 minutes, right? So we want to compress time. Now, who doesn't want to compress time? Everybody wants to compress time. But in this idea of self-fluence, which is kind of, the art science of influencing yourself, kind of the power you already have, how to do it. You already know how to compress time. And so we're going to share now so that you and your listeners can have these 30-minute hours. But I just want to, preface it by saying you already know how to do it. Now, before we tell everybody the secret of the 30-minute hour, what I want to do is I want to talk about the reward side. So let's say, Thomas, that right now I'm going to show you how to do this, and you do it. You do it for 4 hours in a row. So you have these 4 30-minute hours, and you just saved 2 hours of time. So my question is to you is, what would you do with an extra 2 hours of guilt-free time on your hands? So for me, like I like the Peloton bike. I might go for a long Peloton bike ride. I do like walks. I do kind of like to take a nap. Nap is good. Reach out to friends. Like sometimes I feel like I don't reach out enough to friends. So those would be some of the things I would do with my guilt-free 2 hours of time. What about you? What would you do in that case where you had 2 hours of guilt-free time?
I like the guilt-free thing because I immediately thought I'd just do more work.
Right. You're not allowed to do that.
If I had to, if it was like, you really don't need to, you need to take some time away from work right now, I'd do a walk.
Nice. Okay. And walking's really good. Balances the hemispheres of the brain, especially walks in nature are awesome. So that's good. All right. So there is, for people, like I said, you already know how to do it. There is this day, for some people, a couple times a year, that you have this day where you are 3 to 10 times more productive than average day. Now we're just looking for 2x. We're just looking to take 60 minutes, compress it down to 30. That's 2x. But on this day, you're 3 to 10 times more productive than an average day. Now, do you know which day, of the year that is?
I do not.
You do not. Okay. All right. This is good then. So this is something new. But once I tell you, you're going to know. It's going to be the moment of dawning comprehension. So the most productive day of the year for most people is the day before vacation. So now think about that for a little bit. The day before vacation is a different day than other days. And so what I like to do is have people think about that. Like, what do you do the day before vacation that's different than the other days? So for you, I don't know if hopefully you're getting some vacations here, but do you remember, these days before vacation for yourself?
I'm not a big holiday guy, so I tend to take my work on holiday with me. But I can appreciate how other people do take holidays and vacations, and also there's a spring in the step as well there.
Yeah. So when you're thinking about though, like if you're going away somewhere, even if you take your work with you, there's a lot of things that have to happen kind of that day before vacation. And so let's unpack it a little bit. So what I like to tell people is that I have a little acronym for it, PDF. Now PDF stands for portable document format. Everyone knows, hey, go print out the PDF or email me the PDF. So I wanted to use those initials PDF so that you can remember, the 30-minute hour equals the day before vacation equals PDF. So PDF stands for plan, delegate, and focus. And so what happens is these days before vacation and where you can use that to compress time kind of without the stress of the day before vacation is first planning. So P stands for planning. And the most important thing you do is never let a day end without planning the next one. But what happens is in the day before vacation, you only have a certain amount of time. So you plan that day out. Maybe you even get up 30 minutes early, but you're planning that day out because you don't have time. There's a lot of things you don't do on the day before vacation, chit chat, get stuck on the internet, get stuck responding to emails, or whatever. You keep moving, but you plan that day. So planning is key. You get up early and you typically have a clear vision. Like you have mapped out that day really, really well. A lot of times I tell people, let's say you're getting on an airplane and as you go by the cockpit, you look in, there's no pilot. And so you sit down and then the flight attendant comes on and says, there's no pilot today. And so how long are you going to stay on that plane with no pilot? Right. Or worse, the flight attendant says, I think I'm going to try to fly. You're out of there. You're getting off that plane. Well, that's the same thing people do when they don't plan the day. And Earl was a big fan of planning the day, but you've got to plan the day. Otherwise, it's like you're boarding a flight with no pilot. And so bad things are going to happen if you don't have a plan. So planning is the first key to having the 30-minute hours. So you plan it out, you got a clear vision. Number two is delegate. So what happens is on the day before vacation, as new things come up or you realize all these things you have to do, you think who before the do. So you think who before the do. So you're thinking, who could do this besides me? And you're delegating a lot of stuff. Typically, you're going away, so you have to delegate all kinds of things. And so the 30-minute hour, many times that compression of time comes from that awareness and delegating to other people. You're deferring, you're delegating. It's not as important as you think. And many things, the 80-20 rule would say 80% of things are not as important as you think they are. And the 20% is much more important, than the other 80. So you're doing a lot of delegating and deferring. So that's the D. So plan, delegate. And the most important is focus. That's the F. So focus, what I like to call fierce focus, is that the day before vacation, some things are happening. You don't chit chat. There's not a lot of idle time. Like you stay moving, you stay focused during that day. You say no a lot. You say no a lot more the day before vacation. No, I'm going on vacation. I have a little sign here that says, day before vacation, to remember that as I'm going through my day. And typically that day you use timers. So I use a lot of timers. Like I say, well, I'm going to check my email for 30 minutes or 15 minutes, or I'm going to look at getting booked on podcast for 30 minutes. And I'll set a timer. I'll just tell Siri on my iPhone, set a timer for 30 minutes. She'll do that for me. So you use timers a lot. That's a great way to kind of compress time. The other big thing that happens on the day before vacation is that you use tasking. And tasking, there's single tasking, multitasking, and batch tasking. You use all three. So single tasking is when let's say you have to do something, and it takes all your focus. You need to edit a podcast, or you need to write some sales copy or something like that. It needs all your focus. That's single tasking. And you shut out the world, especially the day before vacation. Instead of an hour to do that thing, you say, I only have 30 minutes. So if I'm only have 30 minutes, I've got to turn off all the rings, dings, and bings. I got to get in here. I got to get this thing done. I got to focus. So you're really shutting out the world, single tasking. Multitasking, you're doing that the day before vacation, where you do two things at once, right? So if I'm like, I want to spend time with my family, but I want to get exercise in. Okay, so we go play tennis for an hour. I just did both of those for an hour. So it's like, there's a, two 30-minute hours. There are 30-minute hours right there, blended in to form 1 hour. So you're looking at where can you do two things at once? Like the day before vacation, you say, well, I've got an hour driving in the car. You're not just going to be listening to music. You're going to be making calls, getting stuff done, listening to maybe a podcast you wanted. You're looking for times and ways to do two things at once that don't hurt your ability to get production on either one of those things. And then the final one is batch tasking. And that's where you batch together things that go together or have the same context. For example, if I had 5 phone calls to make today, I wouldn't make one, do something else, make another, do something else. I batch them all together and say, okay, I got 5 calls to make. I've got 1 hour. Let's go. Or I've got 50 minutes, 10 minutes each, go. And so you're batching that stuff together, or running errands. You're going to, hey, I've got 3 errands to run. Let's do them all together. That's the most efficient. So it's efficiency of doing the computer work all at the same time, doing the phone work, or doing the errand work, or having meetings. You're kind of batching it all together. And then other tricks are you're using technology, right? So there are ways to use technology like apps. For example, I rarely listen to podcasts at regular speed. I'm listening at 1.3. Same thing with Audible and books. So I'm looking for technology to help me. And I think the overriding thing that happens the day before vacation, you're planning, you're delegating, you're focused, but you kind of release the perfectionist, right? You release the perfectionist. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get done. And so when you bring all those things together, it's pretty easy to get more stuff done. So get more results and to have those 30-minute hours. So any questions about that, about the PDF?
I love it. I think there's an awful lot of value in your answer as well. The thing I was going to say, more of a joke than anything, is that people could listen to me on 2 times speed, but they wouldn't be able to do that with you.
Yes, I do try to put a lot of words in.
You pack a lot in, a lot
Yeah.
of value into your answers.
Yeah. Yes, I am a fast talker. So maybe for us, we have to go to the 0.8 speed at times.
Well, how often do you use all these principles, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using everything on a daily basis. On a daily basis, I'm using these principles. I think some of the habits that I created, that's probably another big, thing for people in results is habits. But I've created some habits that, planning my day is probably one of the bigger ones and I like to do it in the afternoon of the day before. And then I kind of live my life a little bit a day ahead because I'm already kind of working on things for tomorrow. And so I think habits are a big one, but yes, I'm using these principles on a daily basis and sharing them with people pretty much on a daily basis too.
And for those people who don't plan their day ahead, what would they gain as a result of doing that?
Yeah, I think, you have to, I try to meet people where they are. And so I think that if they, you don't want to be totally structured. So I plan my day, but I don't plan every minute of my day. But wherever you are in the planning process, taking one step and then see how it feels. So all the stuff with self-fluence is kind of self-evident. Like there's research studies and psychological studies. And I actually got to study with this guy, Dr. Robert Cialdini, who lives here in the Phoenix area on influence. And there are social psychology studies and productivity studies. There's a lot of studies in science out there. And I read that stuff. But most importantly is it self-evident to you when you do it? So I would say if you're not a planner, try it out and try just getting a piece of paper and saying, tomorrow, here's the top thing, or here's the top 2 or 3 things that I'd like to get done tomorrow. And then if you can try to get them done earlier in the day, see if that's a better day for you. And then if you want, then you take one step further and then one step further and then one step further. I have a technique, probably one of my favorite actually techniques. I have something called the 21-second habit. And it's how to create a new habit in 21 seconds, not 21 days. So if they told you it takes 21 days, somebody lied to you. But again, we're all like super habit masters, and we just need to tap into that. So for example, this 21-second habit, I tell this story about my wife who she used to have migraine headaches, and she had to keep this log, of like what she ate and what was the weather that day and when did she get the migraine, and she could only do it for a few days, and then she'd lose the log. And so, or, she'd forget to do it. And then I would ask her about it when she had a migraine. Whoa, wrong, bad news. Don't do that. So that was funny. But anyway, in the end, what we figured out, we said, well, look, you're already a habit master at brushing your teeth. And I asked people, most people brush their teeth at least once a day, some people twice a day. She was a twice a dayer. And so what we did is we put the headache log with the toothbrush. So every time she brushed her teeth, she would fill out the log. And she went like 90 days in a row filling that log out. And that changed the medication, that changed everything. And now she rarely has a migraine headache, which is awesome. But this idea of habit linking, that's the key. And so back to the story of the planner, what I tell people, if they don't plan at all, I say, look, if you don't have a plan for tomorrow and you're going to bed and you're brushing your teeth, leave a pad of paper and a pen next to the toothbrush. And while you brush your teeth, dentists recommend 2 minutes. During that 2 minutes, just map out a few things for your day tomorrow. See how that feels. And most people will say that that's great. And after a few days of that, they'll miss a day here or there, but after a few days, then they'll want to make that planning a part of their life. Now, some people do it the opposite. They like to do it in the morning. And so I say, well, what's the first thing you do in the morning? I was talking with a business owner a few weeks ago, and she's like, I have a cup of coffee. I say, how often do you have the coffee? Every day. So you're a habit master at drinking coffee in the morning. Yes. If I don't have it, I go crazy. So I said, here's the deal. If your little list for the day, your next day planning, if it's not done by coffee time, you have to do it either while you're having the coffee, or you could surf that urge to have the coffee and say it has to be done before your first sip of the coffee. She didn't go for that one, but she went for, I'll do it while I drink my coffee, and then she's been, a number of days in a row. So this idea of habit linking, that's one of my favorites. I have a habit, my top habits I've linked to, for me, I linked it to my smartphone. I'm a habit master at opening my smartphone in the morning. Every morning happens. And so when I open my smartphone, there's only a few apps and I have to do those before I can touch anything else. Look at text messages, email, news, whatever. And so my streak now is about 1,470 days in a row that I've done. One example is a mind shower. Like most people take a physical shower, but how often do you wash your mind? So in the morning, I like a 10-minute mind shower. Now, if I'm short on time, I'll do a 3-minute mind shower. But every morning, for 1,400 mornings, I've got this mind shower where I've kind of cleaned my mind out. So anyway, that might have been too much of an answer for you, but I think that hopefully that's helpful for people.
It's a great principle. And I've not heard it before, habit linking, and totally see how it would work as well, because it's a little anchor to essentially remind you that what this needs to be done, and just linking it to an existing habit that you're already doing. So thank you for sharing. I will definitely use it.
Yeah. And the power, it's even more powerful if you can link it to some kind of an urge that you have to do something that's a natural, like having the cup of coffee, right? Or my urge that I want to check my other things on my phone, right? If you can surf some kind of an urge, that kind of even gives you more power to kind of promptly get that thing done so that you can get to your cup of coffee or brushing your teeth or whatever that thing is that you want.
It's brilliant. Thank you. Is there
Sure.
anything that I should have asked you about today?
No, I think the only other thing that I did want to touch upon and maybe even have a short conversation, with you about is this idea of social entrepreneurship. This idea that business is like the first one that I liked early on was Tom's Shoes. You buy a pair of shoes and the company gives a pair of shoes to someone that needs a pair of shoes. My wife and family went on a mission trip and came back and wanted to help kids. And we're like, well, we're not good at charity, but we're good at business. So we created a greeting card company that every time you purchase a greeting card, a child gets nourished. So anyway, I like that, and I noticed that you were doing that. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, and see how did you come about that, and why did you kind of even bake it into your business?
Initially, it was actually something that I did personally. So I had just one sponsored child that I sponsored for years, and I actually hadn't implemented it into anything because I actually wasn't in business at the time when I started. I was an employee. And when I went into business, a few years later, it started to do better and better. And I introduced the idea of every single new client that we get on, we sponsor a child. So each client has has their own sponsored child. And
Oh,
the nice thing that one of my staff members, Lucy, implemented was because you get a picture every time you sponsor a child. So now we've got a picture of all of our children sort of up on a big clipboard, and it starts to really kind of make an impact on the mind, where you're and some people refer to it as like the reason why, like a powerful reason why you're in business. But in terms of another accountability, perhaps, if you don't feel like going into work, then there's another reason. Some people are relying on you to keep that going. So and very rewarding. So those are the kind of reasons why.
nice. Nice. I love that. And I didn't have the detail, the depth there of how the client gets, has this one. And then actually, if you share that with the client, oh, by the way, here's yours. It's little Sally, like that makes it real. So that is awesome. Congratulations on that as well. So yeah, I love that. And I went, I went to Stanford for a couple of weeks. I didn't graduate from Stanford. I graduated from Purdue University, but I went there a couple of weeks to study social entrepreneurship because I really do like it. And I think it's a way, unlike charity, which kind of has stayed flat, how much people give, the businesses, can make a big impact by kind of like you are baking it right into the business. So, well done. But that was the only other thing that I wanted to just make sure I understood today.
Well, thank you. It's good to talk about it, and like I said, it's rewarding for people who do want to go down that route. But I think you've given a massive amount of value today, so I really appreciate that. And I'm sure your other podcast episodes will be just as good. But for people who, let's say, they want to connect with you, where do they go?
Yeah, I think the easiest is just go to Blaine TEDx, so BLAINE TEDx.com, and that'll get you my TEDx talk, which I think is really quite good. I think I'm getting close to 200,000 views there, but then you'll be connected to me. You'll get my email. You can learn about me, and I'd like to help you get results. I do have kind of a results community where I put out articles, and some of the mastermind groups I work with, as their chief results officer, I write articles every month for their publications, and I send that out to my results tribe as well. So yeah, we could be connected that way.
I did. I really liked the TEDx talk as well. So congratulations on doing that. And
Oh, thank you.
for your contribution and for being a great guest today, Blaine. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Thomas.